That's just one of the I think that's the only Shakespeare monologue that I have memorized off the top of my head, so I can easily rattle that one.
You don't have to be or not to be? Philistine.
Nope.
Hello, and welcome to another week. Although remember, the work week is a fiction. Monday doubly so. You can get rid of them if you really want to. This is Social Justice Alchemy. And this week we do have some random geek.
Hello.
But Julie is under the weather. She has a bad head cold, so she is sleeping it off.
Yeah, and it's kind of like she has said before that like she has her fibromyalgia and all her other things. She doesn't complain about it too much. She'll say she doesn't have the spoons, but whenever she's sick, she complains about that. But to be fair, if any of us are sick, well, we're sick, but we're still able-bodied, and I can actually get through my workday just fine, mostly, even while sick. It'll be miserable, but then I can do it. But for her, she is sick on top of, like, being disabled. So, it just sucks.
Yep, this makes it that much worse. So, is there anything you would like to talk about diving in?
Let's see, because yesterday I kind of asked more questions from anarchists and C-Shives Ask Away. C-Shives didn't really actually provide any questions himself that he had for anarchists. But I did got some interesting questions. One that I think should be quick to answer is Joe McClory asked, do you think that we can reform to anarchism, or do you think there's a revolution is needed? We can start with that as a topic.
That is a big and interesting question, yeah. I honestly am not sure either way.
Well, I'm never going to stop reform, and I'm never going to stop other people to try to reform the current system to improve it, to make it better, because improving the system does make the lives of marginalized people and the lives of people in general better. And so that's why, yes, I will vote in the general election. I will vote in the primary. Who I will vote for is up to question right now. I was going to look into it, but for me, especially to give her to capitalism or to give her the state, I don't think it can be reformed away. It just, the powers that be, or the people with power, always want to keep that power, even if some of those people, like political elites or the corporate elites, think that no, I will do good with the power that I have. No, trust me, I will be really, really rich, but I'm going to do a lot of good with the wealth that I accrued, which is the wealth that, if they're especially a business owner or a capitalist, a wealth that they stolen from their workers for the value of their workers' labor and stuff like that. And there you go. Okay, listeners at home, there's one shot for you because I said and stuff like that. I gotta think of other ways to end my sentence or end my train of thought, but when it's I'm caffeinated, or it's just slightly, and I'm just, my mouth is moving, mouth is talking, and it's just and I gotta say something.
Yep. Well, the thing is, I agree with you that we absolutely do need to work on reform within the system we have. I'm not sure that we can't get from here to a more anarchistic society or setup. I mean, anarchism doesn't mean completely eliminating everything. It means eliminating a lot and putting harsh limits on where things can go, getting rid of a lot of stuff, not necessarily getting rid of all government and things like that.
No, right. I mean, we're not getting rid of the mechanism that maintains the roads and maintains the infrastructure, or maintains hospitals and stuff, and education and other kind of institutions like that. We're just we're decentralizing it, so that it's not where it's not just like that power is just all formed into like one place. And I kind of like rewatched that Garrett video that he made of like the anarchism, like a glossary and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's another shot. And because he like outlines like the things that anarchists are for and the things that anarchism are against, like the bureaucracy, like the tons and tons of bureaucracy that's in government right now. That's where, or the not quite useful governments.
I think I agree there. I kind of got lost on my own train of thought, so I missed a bit. But
no, it's fine. That's why we're recording.
Yep.
But for me, ultimately, it's like I think some form of a revolution is necessary to definitely dismantle capitalism or get rid of capitalism, and for us to move into like socialism, at least somewhere along the way. Because especially with like the extremely wealthy, they're so used to the power that they have, and especially with all of the things that they have like done, it's like, I remember saw this on Twitter. It is much more cost effective for corporations to just finance a lot of politicians like campaigns, get them into office, and then have those politicians give them tax breaks. And that is a much cheaper thing for them to do than to actually pay their taxes.
Yeah. And I agree that the powers that be will definitely always fight back, making, reform incredibly difficult. But what do you, at least, mean by revolution?
Yeah, that is a good question, because I do personally hope that it's not a violent revolution, but yet, like, when everyone thinks of revolution, they do think of the violent revolution. I mean, our friend Latano would like share her love for the guillotines, and that was a part of the like a major French Revolution. Marie Antoinette, you are naive to think that like just let them have bread is like, do you know what we are fighting for? And and yeah, so I guess that is it. Well, one thing is, like, I don't think revolution is just, like, one singular event. I remember the first time I ever watched a video by Zhao Zizek. It was a Big Thing video. It's kind of like leftists don't understand revolution or something like that. But it's like, I watched it, and he kind of, like, points to an example of, like, the end of V for Vendetta. So it was like the totalitarian government, John Hurt was like overthrown, and the people took power, as it were, or dismantled the old regime. And Zhao Zizek asks, okay, what then? What happened afterwards? Mm-hmm. And I was like, and I wasn't even an anarchist then, but I was like, does this guy even know about anarchism? Does this guy ever have read any of these stuff or like explored this topic? Because anarchists do know what to do. Okay, like if it were at the
end
of-
yes, but the thing is, nobody ever talks about what comes next, because it does take a lot of work to set things up, to change from a system people are used to something they're not used to, things like that. You can't just get rid of the old thing. You would have to set up a new system. And it makes for a compelling story to just have that sudden change from the old system. But it does not make for a compelling story to, have the work of setting up the new.
Yeah, true. But I would think that, like, at least for like my answer, if I was like talking one-on-one to Charlie, she's like, okay, we all come together, we all determine, okay, what needs to be done, like, is there any like roads to be fixed? I like, is anyone sick? Do they need to go to the hospital? And also, who has what kind of skill? Does people have food? Does people have shelter? Is the heat on? Is electricity working? We kind of like figure out what we have, and then figure out what we need, and then just like, and figure out what can people do. Because that was also one question that I received on Twitter from my friend Lonely Wolf 1980, because he feels that like he could be useless if a revolution comes, or if we move to new society. But that's the thing with like anarchism. No, everyone can contribute what they can contribute, and everyone can do at least a small part. And Lonely Wolf is an educator as well. He's a teacher. And so he can definitely fill in that role because we still need teachers. And I personally think that, like, well, when we move to the full anarchist society or anarcho-syndicalist society, my idea is that we'll have more free time to like learn more things. And for the people who, especially for the people who enjoy teaching, because a lot of people like that, they'll have more time to teach and to make sure that like the students that want to learn can like learn what they can.
But not by bread alone and so on. We also need roses. What about making sure people have leisure time in an anarchist society? Because it's not just about contributing what you can, it's also about, you know, enjoying life in a way you might not necessarily under capitalism.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Which is kind of like what some right wingers say. Oh, you just want to like be a socialist because you're lazy and stuff like that. Well, considering that most people are living, 78% of us in America are living paycheck to paycheck, and they need to like work 2 jobs, there's not a lot of leisure time that we have. Yes, it would be nice if we had more leisure time.
Yep. The working poor, you know, the ones who are working at minimum wage, are pretty much trapped, you know, not able to actually do anything because they're typically working like 50 or 60 hours a week just to, you know, keep their heads above water. And ideally, what we're hoping for under an anarchist society is that that would no longer be the case.
I mean, David Graeber wrote a whole book about the bullshit jobs, because even like now, some people don't believe this, and some people will still resist to that. And I can understand for those people who love their job and love to work at their job. And I'm saying, no, if you love to do that job, and the job is necessary, a job is important, or a job does contribute to society, then you can go ahead and do that. But there's David Graeber wrote a whole book where there's a lot of bureaucratic like jobs, or jobs just created for the sake of there being jobs, like a lot of administration work, or like a lot of lobbyists, account managers, middle managers, and kind of like those kind of like jobs where, well, especially since like is in like a Starbucks, do we really actually like have to take orders from like someone who like is the shift manager or the shift worker or the shift leader and stuff like that? Do we need actual people in that kind of like hierarchy? So once you like know how to like run the machines and like handle customers or handle any of and all of the operations around, I think all of these Starbucks employees can just come gather together and decide collectively as a group of what can we do, what can we not do, or what should we do this, or should we do that, or even all work together for like even a schedule, as it were.
Yep. Although, probably in an anarchist society, there wouldn't be Starbucks.
Yeah. There'll be other kind of small independent coffee shops. Well, yeah, we wouldn't have the Starbucks because it wouldn't be a corporation. That's another thing. Is like most everything would just like be broken up. Because if they're too big to fail, like speaking of banks,
too big to exist.
Then they exactly. Okay, but another.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
All right. Well, I was just going to make the point that when it comes to revolution, almost any kind of revolution, if we're talking about significant disruptive change, violent or not, I kind of distrust it just because the powerful will always seek to take advantage of that to, you know, entrench themselves further.
Yeah, and that is actually a legitimate concern about, like, okay, if a revolution is happening, like a violent one, or one of like major political sea change, that people kind of concerned about like reactionaries taking advantage of the chaos, as it were, and perform their own counter revolution. And I think that has historically happened in other revolutions, whereas there was a revolution, but then there was people with the counter revolution and want to like use that opportunity to take power. I'm not the history major, but I think I heard events like that happen, and so that is a legitimate concern, and that's something that that should be talked about.
Yeah. Counter revolutions are fairly common, and in fact, the Civil War was a counter In fact, the Civil War was a counter-revolution that took place before a revolution could even pretend to start to happen. The reactionaries freaked out so much about losing the presidency that they seceded and then started a war.
Yeah, true. So yeah. So if it was like a failed revolution, then it's like a civil war. But if it's a successful revolution, then it's like a revolutionary war. But for the revolutionists, like, yeah, as it were. Hey, if we lost our Revolutionary War, then it would have been just like that one civil war with the colony.
Yeah, and even with a non-violent revolution, I'd be worried about it, because, like, the way the United States is currently set up is such that the only way, I think, to create the changes we would need would be through constitutional amendments. But those are largely impossible, with the Congress we have. We would either need a constitutional convention or a serious upheaval in our elected officials.
Yeah, and so that's why I personally probably should do more to just like do the groundwork to get out the vote, to like talk to the average American, find out what their concerns are, and try to see if the politicians that I want to put into place, or for the policies, actually, not just the politicians, but the policies I want to put in place, would be in line with those Americans' concerns, the average American's concerns, or try to like see, hey, like I hear you, and I have something for you that can help with that, and even though I right out the gate saying, "Hey, it's anarchism," is like, what? And there's still plenty of people that will think, and that's part of one of the questions, which is a big question. So it's probably we can discuss at a later date. Is like, how does anarchism differ from mob rule, or does it? And that's where every time I suggest direct democracy, people always bring up mob rule, and I find it difficult. Difficult for me. It's like, how can you answer that question or quelch that concern, and as well. But yeah, under this system, the political system as well, with how entrenched everything is. Yes, it's probably so it has to be reformed as well as revolution, or at least revolutionaries working with reformists.
Yeah.
As difficult that sometimes seems to be, especially when I have seen on the left, or people who know, like, the presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, oh, she's a cop. Well, she's out because all cops are bad. And it's like, so it's a really hard sell for get anarchists to have to vote for Kamala Harris because the other option is Trump. And so, yeah.
Yeah. There's anyone who doesn't see in shades of gray is going to be a problem. Personally, I don't know that direct democracy is the solution, just because that would require everyone to be current on almost everything all the time. And that just seems like a lot. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to create any sort of entrenched upper class or political class or anything like that.
So I guess then that the option for that, and like Christopher Enders also like said how anarchism was described to her is kind of like that concern, where it's just like, it sounds like a lot of meetings and a lot of like meetings in order to determine what to do about what. And she says that she hates meetings, and so she would never wanted to go to those things. And that's where I think, okay, then we set up like delegates, or that person is not a representative. They don't have like power. They just like go to the meetings and collect the information, and then that information is somehow, I would see it, this is how I would say it, that information is distributed to the commune, or to the collection, or to that group that delegate is representing, and those non-representative. And this is where people will think, oh, so you just want the exact same thing that we have, like a representative democracy. Well, it's just like, but the delegate how I see it is that the delegate doesn't have the power the representative has, or that there's no corporations that will try to influence those representatives as they do now, which is a problem with the position of the representative. But I think it's like, But that's how I kind of view it. And also, the delegate is not always the same person for a certain period of time or for a long period of time. It's like a rotation, like jury duty, something like that.
Yep, rotation, jury duty, a lottery system sort of thing. Rather than electing people, yeah. But just make sure that it's routinely changed and you can't get anyone entrenched, I think would be a big way to go. I also saw, or remember you said something about getting rid of bureaucracy. A lot of bureaucratic bloat, of course, is just unpleasant corporate expansive bullshit, but in a lot of ways, bureaucracy is necessary for the management and organization of a large structure of any kind, which would include a global society if we ever manage to get that far. I mean, decentralizing can only go so far. When you're talking about distributing food around the world and, distributing resources of any kind, they are in some places, they're not in others. You would have to have some sort of structure, I would think, right?
It possibly, but I remember reading from either The Conquest of Bread, I think it's from Conquest of Bread, or maybe it's from Mutual Aid, where Peter Kropotkin has like pointed out, and maybe there are like systems in other places where like how the trades operate in like Europe. Is there like a centralized EU office of like transportation or transportation that oversees all of the trains going on, or was that various different like companies that have their own trains and their own operation that they work together just kind of like they almost naturally, or for lack of a better word, where they just work together so that all the things for their trains to go to the various places, they all work together. And I guess it's like maybe has to be some kind of like form of like a bureaucracy or office of people to oversee a global anarchist society, if there was. But I always kind of like saw that anarchism, if it is achieved globally with a whole bunch of different like own tiny communes, city-states, municipalities, commonwealths, all working by themselves, but when working with others, when need to, they're all working with others. So I that's how I see it. But so. And if we need like a big government place as it were, where things are centralized, hopefully it will be with like the rotation process of delegates, as it were, like we already discussed.
Yeah, just because you brought it up, I was curious, did a quick Google. The European Union does have a centralized system for that. European Rail Traffic Management System, which prior to being inaugurated at the end of the 90s. And there were like more than 20 different systems to protect trains, different operating rules, different accreditations, half a dozen railway electrification systems, and communication systems that didn't work in concert and things like that. And that, I mean, obviously that's under nations, but I don't see how just getting rid of nations would prevent, these little or smaller communal groups from doing much the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just how I thought. What was it? Oh, that's right. I don't remember where I read that from, or that example, but if it was from Peter Kropotkin, then it was from like the 19th century. So
yeah.
There's that.
But yeah, there was a similar problem, before modern train systems. But yes.
Yeah, I can see that. But okay, that's another thought. Is like, to be fair, I don't see all the safety regulations I feel are mostly justified, and so we definitely will like keep those or look to improve on those with the mindset of just making sure that people's lives are safe. And I think if we do it with the workers owning and controlling the means of production, then it'd probably be much better off than on the capitalist system where they try to save as much money as they can. And then you have some infrastructure failures, like how one apartment building, low income housing in London just got caught on fire, and then people died and or were severely injured because of that, and people lost their homes, all because the building, because they were kind of allowed to with the deregulations that the Tories put in, were allowed to use cheaper material that ignites easily under the right conditions.
Yeah.
So that's one administrative bureaucratic thing that we're like, hey, no, that's a good thing. Let's keep safety regulations. And let's see what we can do to improve on it. And that's another thing about anarchism, is that it's always a constant work in progress. And if people feel the need that's like, I don't want to go to these meetings, I don't have time to be well informed about all these things, I would just go and trust this delegate to go to the meetings and collect the information. Or another thing is that with anarchism, we trust experts. We actually trust experts other than some right-wing politicians. And so we would definitely consult experts on that in a field. If I don't know about trains, I should not make informed decisions about trains. I will talk to the train conductors or the people who lie down the railroads. It's Bakunin's quote. Am I against authority? Perish thought. If I want to know about making boots, I will ask the bootstrapper. So that's another thing to put in there. It's just we will trust experts.
Yep, that is a pretty vital difference between the left and the right. The left trusts experts, the right trusts authority.
That's not to say that the left does not go on to some bullshit. 9/11 truthers, anti-vaxxers. I have some family members. I love them. And I don't think ill will of them. Absolutely not. But I have some family members that are anti-GMOs, and it's just it's not a. If all foods do not have genetically modified organisms in them, I can live with that. But I think that no, GMOs are good, and they do a lot of good things actually in places of the world where it's difficult for them to grow certain kind of foods, or if you introduce some sort of certain kind of GMOs with vitamins, you actually help with certain medical conditions and diseases going on. So it's there's good that GMOs can do, but some people are anti-GMOs, and it's just but generally speaking, yes, the left do trust experts well, the right trusts its authority.
If you want, we could do a whole half hour on GMOs and vaccines and all sorts of skeptical topics.
That's right, because I listened to your back catalog, and some of you did talk about woo-woo medicine, and I was just idiopathic medicine, alternative medicine, and it's oh, I don't want to share this with my stepmom because she actually does the acupuncture and the cupping, and it's just I have my opinions on that. If you spend money doing that, okay. And she actually even did coining on me one Thanksgiving, which I don't think it helped, and it's just oh, this hurts. Oh, why are you doing that? And it's oh, just take and I still end up taking some Vicks cold medicine and then rest. And I'm thinking, and I even said right then, I think that's why I feel better. I rested and took medicine. I'm not sure if the coining did anything, but anyway.
You pray, you take an aspirin, and your headache goes away, Was it you who added this stuff to the things to chat about thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was me adding the questions for anarchism. I like the last one. How sexy is anarchism? That was from Radical Bacon. To which I decided, very sexy. Come on. Red and black are excellent color combinations. And also, it's usually anarchists. It's not always, but I know a lot of trans people who are also anarchists, a lot of queer people who are also anarchists. So there's queer anarchism as well as anarcho-feminism. So hey, if you hate being called a degenerate, come to anarchism or come to the left. We don't.
If you want to be a degenerate, be an anarchist. Be a leftist. If you hate sex, be a fascist. Or if you hate other people having sex, the sex they want, be a fascist.
Right. Aces are perfect. We have an asexual friend, and so I have asexual friends, so they're also welcome in anarchism.
Yes. All right. So it has been about half an hour. How about we go ahead and do our sign-offs real quick? Go ahead and pitch your pitches.
All right, Jonathan Scott, Summer and Geek. I have my YouTube channel. I haven't put anything up new this week on my YouTube channel. They're new, but they're just new to my channel. It's just the re-uploads, mirrors of this podcast on my channel, and I was trying to do like a Let's Play recording with OBS of me just playing like Borderlands 2, but for some reason that the settings were all wrong, so it's just like choppy. So I'm going to work on other videos and probably put up my own quick video of my questions, gathering questions from liberals on my YouTube channel, because I haven't done that. But also, please give money to us at SaphiraJoe@gmail.com via PayPal to our friend Joanna. Phoenix is her new name, Ashley. Phoenix Rising 87. She still needs to get on her own feet or get the money to pay for her housing situation. Also, Lady Columbia actually like desperately needs like $1,000 by Tuesday. So I'll give John Brockman the PayPal link to Lady Columbia. I think it's like paypal.me/Lady Columbia. And I already gave her $100. I probably give her more. And I'm Summer and a Geek on Twitter, Geek Threes and Geeks, and yeah, that's all my pitches. And even though she was not here, our friend Little Anno is the Criff Crafter on Facebook, and she is also one of the admins of the Anarchist Memes Facebook page. And she is Little Anno on Twitter as well.
Yes, and we hope she gets better quickly and feels good, feels well, because it's not fun to be sick. It sucks a lot. As for me, I take part in another podcast, the Dungeons and Debacles podcast, hosted by my friend Kevin, where we are playing an evil party. An evil party looking to unleash an ancient red dragon and fundamentally alter the paradigm of the world of Suel. It's a lot of fun. Okay, and that is it for this week in Social Justice Alchemy. Thanks for stopping by. See you next week.